Hello, and welcome to another episode of Time to Conquer. I'm your host, Mia Paul, and each week I like to kick us off by reminding you how grateful I am that you choose to keep coming back, spend some time with me in your ear as we work through the struggles of our past, end those cycles of self-sabotage, let go of the baggage we are holding on to, take control of our lives, and start to live a life we love. It is officially October, my friends, and I don't know what it is like weather-wise by you, but here it is brisk. It's officially sweater weather. I guess this counts as like a half sweater. But I don't know what it is when the weather starts to cool down, the weeks just fly by. Maybe it's because we're getting to the end of the year. We're crossing our fingers that 2021 is going to be better than 2020, at least in a general mindset for the world. And right now, we're about to be getting into the holiday season. And once that starts, first comes Halloween, then we have Thanksgiving, and then all of a sudden it's Christmas music and gifts and Christmas and Santa is in the air. But for somebody like us, you and me, on this podcast, connecting together because we are committed to our personal growth journey. Not only does the holiday season bring all of the awesome and incredible holidays that have to do with family and food and presents and love and the season of giving, we also start to think about the end of the year, the beginning of next year, and most likely New Year's resolutions. Last episode, we talked about setting goals, specifically setting SMART goals, making sure that we were setting goals that we could measure on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis to make sure we were moving in the right direction. We talked about getting specific with our goals to make sure that even though if we were thinking broad terms where we wanted to go with our life, that we had very measurable and time-sensitive specific goals that we could keep track of and making sure we keep moving in the right direction. For this episode today, I'm actually calling a little bit of an audible because I did have a different message for us today. But something happened to me over this past week that made me realize we needed to talk about something else before we get to the topic I had planned for this week, which, don't worry, we'll just bring it up next week. We were going to talk about visions. We were going to go through it together, and since we were setting our SMART goals for today, October 1st, which in a week when you hear this, we will already be a week in October. We talked about our goals for this month, and I thought it would be a good follow-up to continue our conversation with the topic of our vision. Where are we going in the long term? Where are we wanting to take our life in a broad sense? However, as any good coach is always going to be committed to growth, I too am always focused on making sure that my journey is also moving in the right direction. And I started a new book this week. I started the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And while I realized that this book came out actually in October 2018, so I'm about 2 years behind the ball with this one, I have heard about this book nonstop for about 2 years. This book cover here says over 1 million copies sold, so James must be onto something good. This book was on my to-read list for probably the last year, but that list is ever growing and there's only so many books you can read at once, so I found it just getting pushed down and down farther on the list, and it just wasn't on my radar. But I am part of an incredible book club, and we just finished our last book a couple weeks ago, and everybody was taking a poll over which book out of a couple options we wanted to move into next. And this was the winner. So as any good book club participant, I ordered it and jumped on board. And this week I read the introduction and the first chapter in preparation for my book club meeting. We meet once a week and we talk about a chapter each week. So it's not a huge commitment when it comes to a book club, but it's awesome because we're able to take these books slowly and really work through them and really get different personalities and different opinions on each chapter one by one, process it, and then move on to the next. But in my reading of this week, chapter 1, it was like it was meant to be. Not only does it tie so well into what we talked about last week with our goal setting, it also takes it one step farther. And I was just compelled, I was pulled in my heart to pause the topic that I thought we were going to talk about this week, move that one to next week, and make sure we talk very quickly about some of the really important and deep thinking that James Clear brings up in just chapter 1. And if this is chapter 1, I just have to say I am very, very excited to read the rest of the book and semi-regret putting it off so long. But here, it's not here or there. We are where we are, and we're taking care of tackling this book now. Chapter 1 is about atomic habits, which makes sense given the title of the book. But James takes a different perspective of habits and goals necessarily. And as a follow-up to our episode last week, I just think if you found any value in our last episode 11, about setting goals for October, making this the best month that we can make it as we prepare for the end of 2020 and moving forward to 2021, I know you will find some value in this episode as well, because we are going to shift our mindset a little bit. I'm going to be honest and say this book was a breath of fresh air for me, because as I read chapter 1, I felt the weight of on my shoulders just lift, because he says something first that I needed to hear, and it's mastery takes practice. Nowadays, we're also ready to put in minimal work and get maximum results. We want the immediate gratification towards any of the goals that we have set. And I'm no different than that. Whether my goals are something that you could understand or relate to or not, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that I know you can relate to having a big vision, setting a goal, and maybe falling a little bit short. It happens to the best of the best. I promise you, you are not alone. But James says on page 18 of this first chapter that you should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. Mastery takes practice, and it's so true. It does. When I think about goals, I used to set goals with a deadline, and if I didn't hit that deadline, I would feel disappointed and let down. If I did hit that deadline, I would have that moment of pride and excitement, and then that feeling would be followed up with what's next? It's like my satisfaction of that goal was either 100% because I hit it, but then I didn't know what the next step would be, or 0% because I didn't hit it by this arbitrary date that I set in my mind, and life had a different plan for me, and all of a sudden I was let down. A topic of this podcast specifically is always making sure we are taking steps in the right direction and moving forward to show up as our best every single day. And it doesn't matter if our best that day is 100% or 5%, whatever our best is that day, that is what we are committed to showing up as. And this chapter of this book hit that nail on the head exactly. James says it makes no sense to restrict your satisfaction to one scenario when there are so many paths to success. Ultimately, it is your commitment to the process that will determine your progress. And I read that and my brain exploded. I think as we sit down in this month of October and the last quarter of 2020, we need to remember to give ourselves some grace. We need to remember that the best laid plans will have obstacles. The best intentions will have moments of struggle. And it is okay. We don't need to put all of our eggs in one basket by setting this date and our goal, and all of a sudden either feeling that satisfaction of hitting it, but then being lost of where to go, or letting ourselves feel disappointed because we didn't hit that goal on that day, and maybe allowing it to have us stop on our journey, when if we would have kept on going and pushed, the next week could have been the time of success where we saw all of our hard work come to fruition. I want you to take a moment during every month, every moment of your goal setting, to remember that our goal is just a tool we use to get us where we're trying to go in the long term. These goals that we're setting are important. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely think they are necessary for us to maintain consistency, moving in the right direction. However, they do not dictate whether or not we will be successful hitting our big picture goals, because goals can always change. Sometimes people find themselves setting goals because they think the outcome of that goal is what they're looking for. And throughout the process of working towards that goal, they realize that, one, the work is not worth the result because they want a different result, or two, that they are able to pivot their work, their goal, to hit a different level of satisfaction in their life that they weren't at the time when they set that goal. They weren't able to recognize that that is where they wanted to go. I have found myself falling short of goals many, many times in my life. And I have also found myself hitting high points of success without realizing and without letting myself revel in the work, because I was too focused on a goal I missed. We are going to talk about vision next week, and we are going to talk about the grand picture, the life we are trying to live, the example we are trying to set for those around us, and the legacy we want to leave behind us when we are no longer here. When we start to think about that, it will be important to remember that our goals will only be stepping stones towards those big visions and dreams. Something about this book that I am really enjoying is I am recognizing that I need to shift my mindset from focusing on the goal to instead focusing on the system that will move me forward towards that goal. Your systems, your habits, the small things you do day to day are just as important, if not more important, than the big goals you write down on paper that you work towards. Habits will snowball into allowing you to hit those goals. Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits make time your enemy. When I read that from James in this first chapter, I knew that that was a line I was destined to read, because if you are working and putting the time in on a consistent basis, day by day, even if your progress is slow, you will find you will hit that goal eventually, and each day will continue to move you towards your bigger goals. If you find yourself not putting that effort in on a day-to-day basis, your anxiety will grow, your feelings of self-worth will lessen. You will become somebody who doesn't follow through on something that they said, and nobody feels good about that. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that 22-ish days ago, my husband and I started our first round of 75 hard together, and it went great. Sort of. We found ourselves getting comfortable. I missed a couple progress pictures. I had a piece of cake. He fell asleep before he read some of his pages. He didn't track all of his water. We are so immersed in this life of our self transformation journey and our health and our fitness that we got comfortable pretty quickly in this 75 hard challenge, and we let some of the small details slide by. So I shared on an Instagram live story that we went on a walk and we had a heart-to-heart, and we decided we were starting over because we want to live a life of integrity. We want to live a life that we talk about. I can't be here being a motivational speaker. I can't have a podcast about conquering your past and stopping self-sabotage while I'm allowing myself to self-sabotage my own goals and my own dreams. It is a system that we're working at, and our small habits, nobody would have known that I missed a couple progress pictures, but I would have. And I am living a life of integrity. I didn't know he fell asleep before reading some of his 10 pages, but he did. And when presented with the opportunity to be honest and vulnerable with me, he took it. And I think that is so important because in the end, we are humans. My friends, we are not perfect. We're not trying to be perfect. We are just trying to be better than we were the day before. So next week, we're going to talk about vision. Last week, we talked about goals. This is going to be a 3-week segment where we are really diving deep into what we want so we can move forward this month, next month, the last month of 2020, and going into 2021, knowing that we are in control and moving in the right direction. But the thing I want you to take away from this podcast is to remember that it is not about being perfect. It's not about lying to yourself or to others to make it seem like you're doing better than you already are. It is about showing up how you can each day and reminding yourself that the process is just as important as the outcome. My friends, I thank you so much for being with me this week. I hope this message really dug deep into your mind and hit you in a place that really helps you. Give yourself some grace. If you like what I've talked about just chapter 1 of this book, I will invite you to join my book club. It's not actually my book club, but the book club that I am part of. It's completely free. All you have to do is read the book. We meet every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central. By the time you hear this episode, we'll be only on chapter 2. I've basically already reviewed chapter 1 for you. So if you're interested, connect with me on social media. I would be more than happy to get you the information for our Zoom every single week. The more faces, the more opinions, the more positive people we have in the book club, the better it is for all of us. And if that's something you're interested in for free, no strings attached, I would love to have you in there with me. If you are finding that each of these episodes is really hitting your heart and that something about me is bringing out the desire to be better for you, to let go of some of that baggage, to take control of where you are right now while also moving forward, I would love it if you would schedule a one-on-one free consultation call with me so we could connect on a personal level to see if we would be a good pair together moving through the end of this year and into next year to help you take control. I love our consultation calls that we've been having. I love connecting with the listeners, and I love being somebody that you trust and constantly come back to week in and week out to learn from, to connect with, and to just find some genuine friendship of support and love, the somebody that you can connect with to know that I'm in your corner and I am here to help you succeed. Thank you, my friends, for being with me this week. I can't wait to talk to you next week. Make sure you're ready to think big, look at our grand vision, and start to picture the true life we want to live. We are in it together. I will talk to you soon. Have a great week. Goodbye.